Good morning, people. I finished a book, I don't know, about 5 days ago I finished this. King Mob, The London Riots of 1780. This was a nice short book, written pretty well. The author's name is Christopher Hibbert, and I Googled the author like I usually do, and my wife had just finished a book. He seems to write mostly about the history of Great Britain. And my wife had just finished Victoria by the same author. I don't have too many notes. It was 172 pages. This was published in 1958. And let's get right to the fourth paragraph, page 19. These riots, this caused riots in Scotland also. And it was because of a bill that was introduced in Parliament. And you have to understand the Protestant versus Catholic thing that was going on at that time, 1780. You know, it was going on forever. It was going on for a very long time. It drove, the Spanish Armada of 1588. It drove much of history. Pretty much the continent was Catholic with a pope, and England was Protestant. That's on the page. This is the bill. The 1778 bill, by repealing the Act of William III, granted to Catholics only a few limited reliefs. They were now able, openly and without restrictions, to purchase and inherit land, which had previously not been possible except by legal trickery and conspiracy. Their bishops, priests, and schoolmasters were no longer liable to be imprisoned for life, and the offer of a reward of £100 to an informer who obtained the conviction of a priest was withdrawn. An important condition of the bill, later often forgotten and sometimes concealed by its enemies, was that it should apply only to those Catholics who took the oath of allegiance. All the other disabilities imposed upon Catholics and their complete exclusion from political life and places of trust remained as before. So that's all it was. In Scotland, the people rioted, and this was discarded there. But in the House of Lords, there comes a day when they're going to vote whether they adopt this or don't adopt it. And my notes here are religion, ... To me, it doesn't seem like there's much of a difference between the two, Catholics and Protestants. I guess the Pope and some of the popery and just the whole Catholic thing. I grew up a Catholic, so I'm familiar with the rites and the pageantry of a mass. My next note was the Brits and the Scots behaving as if they were from Paris, because Paris was always a pretty crazy place, and you just get the feeling from the British, from their history versus the history of Paris, that the Brits are pretty down to earth and pretty laid back, while in Paris they'll revolt and start killing for just about anything. The day that the House of Lords considered this bill, I have written down here, equal parts Kristallnacht and January 6th. There's a guy named Lord George Gordon. It's actually cold out here. That's why I'm wearing a shirt today. A rare cold morning in Florida. Lord George Gordon. He's Scottish, and he is the president of the League of Protestants. I don't know why I want to keep saying Presbyterians, but it's Protestants. He is the president of this league, and the day that Parliament, the House of Lords, is going to vote on this, he leads his followers there. He has them in front of the place, chanting and screaming and beating up lords as they, yanking them out of their cabs and giving them a beating. When you're reading this, it's impossible not to think of Donald Trump and the January 6th thing. Only the House of Lords were not loyal to Mr. Gordon at all. Gordon keeps going out on the balcony and working up this crowd, working it into a frenzy. And several of the other lords tell Gordon what they think of him. Colonel Holroyd went up to him and said, "My lord, at first I thought you were only mad and was going to move that you might be sent to Bedlam. Now I see there is much more malice than madness in the business. If you go once more to the mob, I assure you upon the faith of Parliament, I will instantly move that you be committed to the Tower." General Conway was more ferocious. Grabbing him by the collar, he said in a very loud voice, "I am a military man, and I shall protect the freedom of debate with my sword. Do not imagine that we will be intimidated by a rabble. Entry into the house is a narrow one. Reflect that men of honor may defend this pass." Other members were even more explicit. One or two gentlemen who followed him about the house with their hands on their swords threatened to plunge his blade into Lord George's body if a single one of his rascally adherents came into the house. Top of 136. I don't know what this is. Top of 136. Every time I write top of something, then I have to go through the paragraph. I don't know what this is. The mob started out being 20 or 30,000 of Lord George's adherents. It ended up being people that just wanted to burn and loot. The mob changed demographics while this was going on. There was an entire week where they rampaged through London, burning down people's houses. When it was all over, Lord George gets arrested for treason, for high treason. He's put on trial. He's got a real good lawyer. He's found not guilty. I think it was pretty much because the punishment phase for high treason in 1780 was pretty fucking harsh. Not only were you hung, but they cut you down before you died, and they disemboweled you, and they cut you in 4 pieces. So I'm not sure if he deserved that. Later on, Lord George is arrested again for doing some nutty stuff. He gets nuttier and nuttier as his life goes on, and he is found guilty the second time, put into prison, and it's kind of weird. He has it pretty cushy in the prison. Another thing that these rioters did is they went to all the prisons and broke in and released all the prisoners. It was crazy. Not too many people were killed. I didn't know anything about this, so it was a really good book. Thanks for watching. I'm probably going to upload again today because I got like 20 pages to go on another book.